A server is called a server for a very simple reason. It serves files. And in the case of web design, it serves files to a client. What's a client? Well, it's a fancy word for a browser.
Whatever.
Now, as with everything that has gone before, you've noticed there's always two types of everything, and servers are no different. There are local servers, and a local server is very simple. In the case of you in this class, it's going to be your computer, or it's going to be your external hard drive. In a work situation, it could be a local area network. But the point is that these files are only going to be accessible to you and or other group members locally. Files are not served to the internet from a local server. The other type of a server, also known as a remote server, but I like to refer to it as a web server because it's a little more intuitive. And this is a server that serves files to the internet. So if you have a computer connected to the internet anywhere in the world, you can access this server, this hard drive, and have web files served up to you. Now, how does the internet do this? It seems kind of magical. Well, when you buy a domain name, in other words, in the case of our class, for instance, our class website has a domain name. If you type that into the browser sends it to the internet. It accesses a master list, and on that list is an indication of where that domain is hosted or where it's sitting, what hard drive it resides on. It will give what's called an address. And therefore, it will navigate to that hard drive, and then you are in a position to receive those files from the web server. So it really is this simple. A local server serves files to you at a local level, to your own computer, to your own external hard drive, to a local area network, small group. A remote or a web server serves it up to the world because the internet has access to that hard drive through a specific address. Let's start off locally because that's where you're going to be starting off when you do your web design. You are going to create all your files, create all the relationships between these files locally on your computer. When you have the files just the way you want them, in other words, all your HTML pages look just the way you want them to look, all your images are perfect, they're in the right position on the page, all your links work, going to the appropriate pages or sites, when everything is just working perfectly in every way, well, then you are ready to upload those files to the web server. Now, before we get to that portion, I have a question for you. Should the files on the web server be exactly the same and organized in exactly the same way as on your local server? Very important question. So I'll give you a few moments to think this over. Good luck. Does this answer your question? Yes. Absolutely yes. I cannot state this emphatically enough. Because you spend all that time creating these relationships locally, and why wouldn't you upload them to the web server with exactly the same relationship?
I don't know.
Because if you're creating all these file paths, telling this image to go to this page, or telling this link to go to this page or to this website, if you change things around on the web server, then all those relationships aren't going to work. Absolute file paths will work because it's sending them out to the internet and saying navigate to this exact address. But most of your file paths are not going to be absolute file paths. Most of your file paths are going to be relative. And so if you change those relationships from your local server where everything's working to the web server where everyone in the world is going to have access to it, you're going to be very disappointed and get a whole lot of error messages, missing links. You get the message. So you'll notice here on this screen, the bottom are those local files that you've spent all that time making just perfect. On the top of the screen is your web server. And on your web server, all you see at this point is a root folder or a root directory. Now, I've mentioned a few times in the past, but this is where I'm really going to emphasize it, that your root folder and your site folder are basically the same thing. We tend to call it a site folder when it resides locally on our computer, but once you go to upload those files to the web server, you're going to be uploading them to the root folder. So they are in essence the same thing. Everything inside of both of those folders should pretty much be the same. So now you've got everything uploaded to your web server. Every file is exactly the same in both places. And of course, will always happen. You are going to find mistakes. You're going to say, oh, I have a typo there. Oh, this link is broken here. Oh, this image, there's part of a thumb showing. These are all things that you need to deal with and fix. So as you go in and you fix these files, you are then going to need to re-upload them to the web server. This is called syncing, and the good news is once we're in Dreamweaver, this becomes very simple to do. But remember, your goal is to always have complete compatibility, complete commonality between your local server and your web server.
Yes, dear.